Right now, we are following that breaking news in the west. This morning, some of the Pacific coast is under a tsunami warning.
We do have live coverage on this. Gary's been talking about how it happened. Also, our sister station in Seattle has how this impacts the Pacific coastline. But first, let's get to our Diamond Palmer, who's just been tracking this overnight. Diamond, what have you learned and what's changed already this morning?
Yeah, Michelle and Rennie, so some things have changed for the better here. I want you to take a look here at this map. This is Hawaii. That has actually been downgraded to a tsunami advisory, so less implications there about the danger, of course, but they've already been hit with those tsunami waves. You look over here to the west coast here, you can see just how many places along the west coast are still under that tsunami watch. So of course that's more urgent than an advisory. You still need to make sure that you're paying attention to those local warnings. And again, those tsunami waves, of course, are still impacting the west coast. We want you to look here at some video that we were able to get overnight. Again, a major tsunami is not expected to strike the state of Hawaii. However, that agency and officials there still warn that strong currents can still happen and still be a serious hazard. Some residents have already been able to return back to their homes after thousands evacuated. Tsunami warnings, watches, and advisories for, of course, Hawaii happened in addition to Japan and Alaska and parts again of the west coast. Hawaii's Governor Josh Green says they're keeping an eye on things and hope that things continue to downgrade for the better. Some residents, of course, have again still been able to return to their homes, but should look out for things like damage.
Everything has been okay so far. We haven't seen a big wave, but when that water receded in Haleiwa and we saw some boats kind of laying on the dry rock and sand, that gave us pause. That doesn't happen for no reason. When the water pulls back like that, that means there's activity in the ocean. So again, we keep our fingers crossed that we don't suffer a big tsunami. Again, people have been very thoughtful and very safe, and that's something we appreciate.
So again, Hawaii is what has been downgraded to that advisory. The west coast, parts of the west coast are still under that tsunami watch. Of course, if you are planning to travel, have travel plans out of Lambert, we were able to look for you. And overnight, we saw that the last flight that left to the west coast was actually to Seattle last night at about 8 p.m. our time. Most airlines, though, are still canceling or pausing their flights into Hawaii for now. Hawaiian and Airlines Alaska have announced that people can reschedule their flights at no cost or cancel for a credit. However, this morning we want to get right over to meteorologist Gary Frank, who explains earthquakes can really disrupt the waves. We know it's not impacting our area, Gary, but still some pretty big impacts.
Yeah, for sure. And, obviously we're getting some of those travel delays. So at the very least, we're seeing the ripple effects, no pun intended there. But, the ripple effects from this, when you look at where this earthquake was, the fact that it was such a big one and it had 13-mile depth, we had 8.8 magnitude. And when we see that energy under the ocean, it's just think of it from a simple standpoint of if I dropped a pebble or a rock into a very still pool, you're going to see those ripples out. Well, the same energy goes out, but it's coming from under. And I want to show you where this comes from here specifically, because as you look at what's going on, what is a tsunami? Well, you see those earth plates rubbed together underwater as they have that underwater earthquake. Well, that sends up a vertical push of those waves. That's that energy. And then, of course, you'll see those waves travel for hundreds and hundreds of even thousands of miles. And as that wave spreads into the shallower waters, it grows in height, right? So it continues to push. Now, there could be more significant waves closer to, if this happens on the Russia side or whatever it may be, or other spots closer to where the main magnitude of that is. But as we look at the one tsunami warning for our area, for our country at least, is Eureka. It really, some of this have to do with the fact that the terrain and the landscape here, because the rest of the area right along is the tsunami advisory. You're going to see impacts from that. Obviously, the waves picking up, you can see the reverberations, and they're able to pick this up, obviously, when it comes to the seismographs and also the wave heights. So you're able to see that, right? So that's what they're searching right now. But it is not going to be expected to be some significant event, but it's causing some issues, and we'll see whether or not it has more effects down the road the rest of the day as we update you on this throughout the 6 and 7 o'clock hour.
All right, Gary. And nearly 3,000 miles away from Hawaii, the state of Washington is taking the tsunami warnings very seriously.
Yeah, Jim Nelson from our sister station in Seattle is in Ocean Shores with the work being done there to protect the coast.
This is the type of scene up and down the coast in Washington. We are in Ocean Shores where the beach has just been closed. I spoke with the emergency management director here in Grays Harbor County in Washington, and they said their main concern is a 12 to 24 hour period of strong and abnormal currents, mostly impacting the maritime community. At this point, they're not particularly worried about any inundation or any major impacts inward. But again, because of those abnormal patterns that they'll be seeing in the water, they want people to avoid going right up to the coast, and that's why they're starting to close some of the beaches as they're doing here. There were certainly plenty of people on the beach that have been told to back off, again, because the beach is closed and because of the concerns over the water conditions. Could be a 24-hour event with those strong currents. In Ocean Shores, Washington, Jim Nelson.
All right, and we will continue to track the damage reports throughout the morning. You can look for more updates on air and at ksdk.com, as well as Today in St. Louis Plus on 5+.